Today I'll show you how to build a QR code-based positioning system using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's a beginner-friendly project that teaches some important coding practices, and we also learn to use a library for scanning the QR code. I know, I usually implement everything from scratch, but this time I want things to be simple and quick. So if you want to learn how QR codes work, check this video by Veritasium. Derek explains how the information is encoded and even interviews Masahiro Hara, who invented the QR code. It's a nice watch, I think. Now, when building this project, we're gonna need an image of a map or a floor plan of some kind. I made a few while also testing the drawing app we're building during my live streams. If you want to use these ones to follow along, get them from the material link in the description. But you can use any image you want, like a real floor plan of some building. And make it so when you find a place with a QR code and scan it, the app will tell where you are. In the material link, you'll also find some QR codes I generated using an online tool. They encode numbers, which act as IDs for those places on the map. Now let's position ourselves for some serious coding. Get it? Because we're gonna... No! Gonna code, debug, and have fun. Coding with Radu, coding with Radu. Gonna prototype and design. Coding with Radu, coding with Radu. Let's code now. I'm gonna be using Visual Studio Code as my editor. And here inside of a folder, I've added those images with the floor plans. So this is level 0. It's a apartment with the kitchen and a living room, bathroom, and then stairs that go to level 1. And here there's this corridor going to a workroom or a bedroom. Now these are PNG images. They also have a little bit of transparency on the side. And that's important to note when coding with them later on. But if you have images you want to use, there's no problem with that either. Now let's begin with basic HTML. I'm going to create a new file here, index.html, next to the images folder, and start typing the doc type and then the HTML opening and closing tags and the head section with the title QR-based positioning. Now the body of the document, and let's just see if this works until now. We can test by opening index.html in a browser. I'm using Google Chrome, and you can see it works because it says here in the title there QR-based positioning. But I would also like to see this appearing on the page itself. So in the body, I'm going to add here an h1 tag, QR-based positioning. Save, refresh, and we see it here. But I would like it to be in the center, maybe, as a page title. And for that, we're going to start to define our styles in an external style sheet. So we link it here. Let's call it style CSS. And in VS Code, you can control-click this to create the file. It appears here next to index.html. And in it, we can tell the body to text align to center. Save, refresh, and you see it now here. We can also style it differently. Maybe we go below here, and for the H1, we say we want Arial font. And now if I go here and when I press refresh, you can see the difference. You can also change the color. Maybe let's put a darker green, something like my university's logo. I think that's nice. Now let's try adding one of those floor plan images underneath. So I'm going to go to index.html and here say image with the source images/level 0 PNG. And it's important to add one of these alt attributes. Let's just say map here, because otherwise, if this image doesn't exist for some reason, then we don't know what it's supposed to be about. But now we know it's a map. So if I'm going to refresh now, you'll see this actually doesn't work because the name of the image should be level_0, not level 0. But I still see it's supposed to be a map there. It also helps screen readers to those people that can't see very well. So always make sure you add that in your code. Save, refresh, and it's a really, really big image. It goes off screen in my case. We're gonna have to style that, and I'm gonna give this image an ID. And I'm going to go to style CSS, and for that specific image, hashtag map, referring to it by its ID using the hashtag. I'm going to say the width should be 100%. Save, refresh, and now you can see it fits the screen quite nicely. Or does it? Usually browsers add here some extra margin on the left, but now because this has some transparent margin, it's hard to see. So let's try to give this background color, let's say red, just to test. And now you see there is a little bit extra space here, and I don't like that. Especially because we're gonna build a phone app. I mean, when you think about positioning apps, you're mobile, you're moving, you should carry a device that is light, I suppose. So how does this look like on a phone screen? For that, we can open the developer tools and press this button up here. And you can see the map is not that big in this orientation, so those extra pixels there will help. And if you go to this elements here, you could go to the body and set its margin to 0. And when you do that, you see that those margins disappeared over there. So this is the style that we can add here to the body next to the text align we had previously. And another thing that happens when we switch to this mobile view is that this font becomes seemingly smaller. Like, why does this font size change from here to here? And that's because mobiles render the page at a larger size and then zooms out for it to fit. And to get the behavior that you want, you should specify here this meta viewport tag and set the content so that its width is the device width. Save. And now when you refresh, the size of the font is what you expect. Let's add a marker to be able to show our location on top of this map. And we're gonna do that here underneath that image. It's gonna be a basic div with ID marker. And we're gonna style this marker in CSS. Here below the map, hashtag marker, because we are addressing it by its ID. And then I'm going to set its width and height to some fixed value. And I'm going to use viewport units for this. And relative to the width of the viewport, I'm going to say 3, so 3% of the viewport width. And the same for the height, 3% of the viewport width. This is going to give us a square. Let's give it the background color so we can see it. Let's have it black for now. Now save, refresh, and you can see it appearing here. To make it look like a circle, we can add here a border radius of 50%. And now it looks like that. It's not so easy to notice as such. Maybe it needs a little color, and I'm gonna reuse this color that we had previously for the green here. Maybe a little better, but I want it to be even more emphasized. So I'm going to try here to give it an outline, maybe a 5-pixel outline. Okay. And maybe I'm gonna also try giving it a border. Let's try 5 pixels, but make it white this time. So now it seems to look more like a bullseye. And because we reused the same color here, maybe we want that to have like a color theme, then it would make sense to do something about this, because copying values is a problem when coding, especially if you start to have a lot of these and then you decide to change the color to something else, you're going to be in trouble. So I recommend going up here and defining some global variables. For example, we could say that our green is going to be this. And then here, instead of just typing 280, we can replace both of these with that green variable, like so. So a small change, and everything still works as before. But if I'm going to change this green to some other shade or color entirely, then saving, refreshing is going to update both of those as expected. I'm just gonna leave it to green because that's what the name of the variable is. And to position this marker somewhere where we want to have control over that, we are going to give it absolute positioning. And let's set its top and left to 0, 0, so the top left corner, and see how that one works for now. Save, refresh, and we see it here. And you notice that it's kind of including this border as well, but not the outline when positioning it. So I would like the center of this bullseye to be at 0, 0, which is the top left corner of the screen. And for that fix, we can transform translate by -50%, -50%. So this is moving it half its width and half its height towards the left and top respectively. And now if you go back here and refresh, you can see how the center of that is at 0, 0. But we want this 0, 0 to be relative to the map itself, right? So to do that, we can group both of these, wrap them inside a div. Let's call it map container, and then close the div here. Let's fix this alignment and set this map container's style so that it has relative positioning. Now save, refresh, and you can see that this now moved to this new 0, 0 relative to the map container. And it kind of works, like if you go here to the marker and change some of these using percentages, maybe 50% from the top is halfway, 50% from the left is kind of in the center of the screen. But if you go 100% from the top, you can see it's just a little bit lower than where it's supposed to be. And the reason for that is that this map container by default has a font size. And that font size is included in that space that's used for the calculations. Maybe if I'm gonna move this red color here, you're gonna see it better. So save. And now when I'm gonna refresh, pay attention what happens here to this bottom part. It's a little bit bigger. But again, that's because this map container actually has a font size that is non-zero. And if we set it to 0, you see that extra spacing there disappears. So I'm going to copy this inside of our CSS file here. And now when we refresh and change this marker's position to be 100% from the top, it is exactly at the bottom right there. And if you try 100% from the left, something funny actually happens. It increases that region because of this border and its properties. So we can also fix that problem by setting the overflow of this map container to hidden. It cuts off a bit of this marker, but it's not really supposed to be that in that location, so it's fine. Now let's start collecting some data using this system. So I want to see where the kitchen is. Maybe a QR code would be on this table, and then I want the marker to be at that location. So let's just play around with these percentages and figure out where they should be. Maybe something like this for the top. Yeah, so 59 and 56 would be the coordinates for this location. And I'm going to start to collect this in a separate file called data. And if we control click this, VS Code creates it for us next to index and style CSS. And here, let's say the places is going to be an object where the first place is going to be the kitchen, and the coordinates were 59% and 56%. So I'm using here object structure instead of an array because I want these keys for these places to be flexible. They can be numbers or letters or maybe even words. And this will tie in with what we could store as part of a QR code. Now let's add another item here. Maybe let's go to this bathroom there. And just thinking, this could be easily modified to have some other kind of use, like maybe the QR codes could be in some store like IKEA style store. And when you scan those codes, it tells something more about those products or whatever. Anyway, you can do many things with this prototype. So 24 and 15. I'm just going to copy this with 2 for the bathroom. Now 24 and 15. And let's add some things to the top floor as well. So I'm going to use level 1 here and refresh. And in this other level, let's try maybe the workroom. So top, how about 20%? 24%. And then left, let's say 30%, 34%. So 24 and 34%. So back to data. I'm gonna copy this. Workroom, 24%, it's already there, and 34%, like that. The third key here. Now this is at a different level, so we need to somehow specify that as well. And I'm going to add here a level to each of these, a comma, and then level 0 for these two at the top, and level 1 for the workroom because it's at the top floor. And let's add one more. So maybe the bedroom here. I'm gonna move the left to 70 and the top, let's have it a little bit lower, maybe 35. So 35 and 70 for the bedroom. Key for 70. Okay, and now let's implement functionality so that the map can show the marker at that location. I'm going to create a new JavaScript file here. Let's call it map.js. Control clicking this makes the file here. And the function will be show marker at a given place. And then the marker style, we will change the top. I'm going to use a template literal, so this backtick. And inside, I'm going to take out the top attribute of the place. So place top, like this. And that's going to be a value between 0 and 1, the way we stored them. We need to multiply by 100. And then I'm going to concatenate the percent symbol, because that's how we want our units to be in the CSS. And the same thing goes for the left style. And we can actually test this function now in the console. So save, refresh, and if you go here in the console and type show marker at place 1, it uses the previous map image, so that's something we have to fix. But for level 1, places 3 is on the desk right there, and places of 4 is going to be on the bed, so those two work. Let's also change the image of the map. So here I'm going to say map source is images level underscore and then place level PNG. Save and refresh. And now when we run the same things, they work in the same way for 3 and 4, but if we try places of 1, it also changed the image. And there was a small lag there when changing the image, because that image with level 0 was not loaded. And if you load these images from a server, like if you use the internet, then that's going to be really noticeable, actually. So I recommend, when building a real application, to have some kind of a preloader here, or at least load the images at the beginning somehow. Like, for example, let's have here main.js. So this is the one that will start some code when the application loads. Control click it. And I'm going to have here an array of images that I want to load. 2 of them, one for level 0 and one for level 1. And the 0th one source is level 0 PNG, and the second one here, like so. And just by writing this, when the application is loading, like now, it already has included those images in memory. And that means that when we are going to jump to places of 1, it's happening instant, because the browser just retrieves it from memory there instead of loading it from online. It uses the cache. So not ideal, because if your internet is really slow, then the first image that loads will take some time. And if you're really fast going to other places, they might not load in time. So a better preloader should be implemented here. But this is better than nothing. Now let's forget about this map for now and worry about how to scan the QR codes. Actually, I'm gonna go here in the styles and tell the map container to not appear, so we don't get distracted by it. But we have nothing now. And instead I want to add here a button for scanning. I'm gonna go below the map container and add a button here with ID btn, and let's say scan on top of it. So something like this, but I don't like the way the default buttons look. So let's give this btn button its own style. I'm going to reuse the green variable that we defined at the top for the background color. So like this. And because it's dark, I'm gonna use light color, actually white color, for the text, like so. And I want to give this some padding, maybe 10 pixels. Somehow I feel it needs a little bit more padding on the sides than at the top, so maybe let's add here 20, like that. I think this is better. And I don't want this border to appear. We can let's say none. Okay. And maybe rounded corners. So we can put the border radius 5 pixels. Yeah. And I said this is like meant to be a mobile application, but you never know. Some people might open the website on their computer, and when they do that, I typically expect here the mouse cursor to change to that hand pointer. And we can do that by specifying here cursor to pointer, and this works as expected. Now I want this to be in the center of the screen. So for that, we can set its position to absolute, top to 50%, left to 50%, and transform translate by -50%, -50%. Same as what we did for the marker. And there it is, here, waiting to be clicked. Speaking of which, when we click on this button, I want to toggle the scanner. And this is going to be a function we implement in its own file. Let's call it scanner.js. Control click this to create the file. And by default, I'm going to say that the scanner is off. So setting this variable to false. And toggle scanner, I'm going to change the value of this variable from false to true, or from true to false, depending on what it was previously. And then if the scanner is on, I'm going to tell the button to show the word cancel, because it's going to toggle what it does in behavior. Otherwise, I'm going to set the text to scan, like so. Now, if we save and refresh, we can already see this behavior happening there. But of course, the scanner is not starting because there is no scanner yet. I found this QR code scanner online, and I think it's quite nice. It actually supports much more than just QR codes, a lot of other things as well. There is good documentation, and I think that you can see also the examples there. But I'm just going to show you how to use it to get the basic functionality that you need. First, we include the script, and for that, you can add here this link. You can also copy it from this video description. And we displayed the scanner in a separate div. I'm gonna add this one before the button here so that the button will be on top. Going to main.js here below the images, we can say that our reader is going to be a new HTML5 QR code with this camera as a parameter. So now it's going to initialize that scanner on top of this container there to show the camera view. And in scanner.js, instead of just updating this button text, we can also go here and actually start the scanner and then stop the scanner when pressing this button. And I'm going to implement this start scanner function here. And for that, we are going to tell the reader to start. And here we specify that I want to use the environment facing mode. This is important because mobile devices typically have two cameras, one on the front and several on the back. And environment means those on the back. So when you scan things, you typically look at the front screen like this, but this camera is acting. So we want to use that one, not take a selfie. And we don't have QR codes over our faces. And then there could be more options here, but I'm going to leave these empty. You could specify the frame rate, for example, if you want fewer frames per second, could be less processor intensive in that way. And here, this is the success function. So when we have a successful read, this text variable is going to tell us what's hidden inside of the QR code. And let's just log this one to the console for now, and also write this catch block. If an error happens, I'm going to console error starting QR code scanner. And let's also display what the actual error information is. Now for the stop scanner here, I'm just going to say reader stop. Save, refresh, and now when I press this scan, you don't actually see this window appearing here, but it asks me if I allow or block the camera. You can see this use camera question appearing there. So if I press allow, it's starting this camera on my laptop there in front. So you can now see me there too. Hello. And if I cancel now, it stops it. I start it again. Allow. Seems to work. And let's see what happens if I show it some of these QR codes. So these QR codes here, you get some number appearing there in the console. And all these QR codes are in this paper are just numbers from 1 to 6, I think. So I'm getting 2 now appearing there. 4 for this one. 3 and then 5 and 6. So they seem to work okay. But there is one thing that I didn't test yet, and that's if I refresh the page, scan, but then I say block. So if I block this, I'm going to get this error starting QR code message here because I didn't give the permission. But now this button says cancel. It's as if it started already. So I don't want that to happen. I want in this case to also toggle the scanner so that it changes the button. But now it's also going to stop the scanner. So if we don't want this to give an error because it hasn't been started, we can wrap this in a try catch block. Normally you want to do something with this error, but I won't bother with it now. Now save, refresh, and scan, block. You can see it says scan again. So scan, allow, and now everything works as expected here. All we have to do is modify this function that is here on success. So I'm going to open curly braces and type more things here. First, I'm going to try to get the place with this text as the key, as that ID 1, 2, 3, 4 that we have defined in data.js. So places of text like this. And if we succeeded to get a place, if it is defined, then show marker at that place. I'm also going to toggle the scanner because it did its job. It recognized something. And now here I'm going to say else error invalid QR code. Maybe we're showing it the wrong kind of QR code and it didn't recognize any place with the given information there as the ID. Now showing the marker, I'm also going to make this one display the map because at the moment it's hidden. So the map container, I'm going to set its display to block. And up to you if you want to hide the map again every time you scan a new code. I tend to like that because it shows one thing at a time and it's maybe more clear for the users. I am going to do that here. Save, refresh, and now if we're going to scan something, allow, and now the camera is there. And let's try, I guess this is the number 1 QR code. Okay, it's there in the kitchen. Now that information here also has a name. You could display it somewhere on the screen. I'm gonna let you do that as a homework. But let's just try out the other QR codes. Let's scan again. Now this asks me for allow again and again, but on mobile, usually depending on system settings, it's not going to do that more than once. So another one. Okay, so this was the bathroom. Okay, the desk. And now scan again. And the bedroom is there. And now let's try these QR codes that are not going to give proper keys. Okay, so invalid QR code appearing there for both of them. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you guys. I don't know where I'm waving anymore.